all have very important modalities. That's number one. Number two, for osteoarthritis, we really give importance on the location. Which joints are affected, which side is affected. Location is very important again for osteoarthritis. Number three, we give importance on the character of the pains. The character of the pains. Is it stiffness is important, or soreness is important, or burning is important? If we try to cover these three aspects in osteoarthritis, we find that we actually come to a medicine. The modality, the location, and the character of it. I believe, and also I have seen, that these are the most important when we are prescribing on the basis of these symptoms in osteoarthritis. I'll first start with the acute medicines or the lesser known medicines. If you look in your handout, it's in page 29. Here my handout. Page 29. Acute medicines. See that the first medicine in our list is Actia spicata. Have you got that? The first medicine is Actia spicata. You don't need to know so many things about Actia. I'll just mention two things for Actia spicata. Number one, if you have a patient with wrist joint rheumatism, and which is aggravated from the least touch or the least motion, that's Actia. Wrist joint rheumatism, which is aggravated by the least touch or the least motion, you got Actia. Very few medicines, I'll say no medicine has so much action on the wrist joint as Actia spicata. It's a wonderful medicine specific for wrist joint rheumatism, which is aggravated by the least touch or the least motion. Even opening the jar or touching it here, anything which causes fatigue, that causes aggravation for Actia. We could have thought about dry hernia because it also covers aggravation motion. But what differentiates dry hernia from Actia spicata? The location differentiates dry hernia from Actia spicata. If you have that wrist joint which is aggravated by the least motion, it's definitely Actia spicata. That's number one. Number two on our list is benzoic acid. Again, two things very important for benzoic acid. Number one is cracking of the joints. Cracking of the joints, which is aggravated by the least motion. Cracking of the joints which is aggravated by the least motion. Cracking of the joints which is aggravated by the least motion. Number one. Number two, benzoic acid is a celebrated medicine for high uric acid. High uric acid is a very important part of benzoic acid. Please remember, offensive urine is a character of benzoic acid. High uric acid with very offensive urine, please remember benzoic acid. And also, for benzoic acid is a wonderful medicine for ganglion. Ganglion in the near the wrists. Ganglion. Number one I mentioned is cracking of the joints. The cracking sound will be heard on the least motion. Number two for benzoic acid is high uric acid associated with offensive urine. Very, very bad smell in the urine, offensive urine. And number three I mentioned is ganglion. You take down 3-4 medicines for uric acid in your clinical kits. High uric acid. Number one is obviously benzoic acid. Number two, Artica urens. Artica urens, Urtica. Artica urens. In urticaria urens, you generally have an allergic predisposition, allergic tendency. You know, urticaria urens is a medicine for shellfish allergy, crab allergy. So there is an allergic predisposition in urticaria urens, shellfish and crab allergy. Number 3 is Berberis vulgaris. In Berberis also there is an important modality, aggravation. Standing is very important for Berberis. Aggravation standing. It's written in Boric that standing brings on or increases most of the urinary complaints. So standing is very important for Berberis. Standing brings on or increases most of the urinary complaints for Berberis. Number 1 I mentioned benzoic acid. Number 2 is urticaria urens. And number 3 is Berberis vulgaris, where you will find standing increases most of the urinary complaints. And you know Berberis is a left-sided kidney medicine. Left side. Another interesting medicine I'd like to mention is Hedeoma. 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 For high uric acid. Yeah. No, that's hydrangea. Hedeoma. Hedeoma. That's also a medicine for high uric acid. But the character in Hedeoma is pain in the thumb joint is very important for me. Pain in the thumb joint. That's very important for me. No, very few medicines will have this kind of character in Hedeoma, that is pain in the thumb joint. Please remember, high uric acid with pain in the thumb. Toe joint, that's common, one of the common symptoms for high uric acid. You can try colchicum. Colchicum has also pain in the ball of the toe. Colchicum, but colchicum is more of 30C, 200C, but these are more lower potencies. Yeah.
The uric acid deposits in the thumb, is Hedeoma good for that as well, or can you use?
Yeah, high uric acid with deposition in the thumb joint. Yeah, that's Hedeoma. So I mentioned uric.
Use this as a medicine.
Oh yes, 6C.
All of them in 6C.
Tincture or 6C. So I mentioned urtica, benzoic acid, Berberis and Hedeoma. So coming back to benzoic acid, I mentioned that number 1 is cracking, which is aggravated motion. Number 2, high uric acid with offensive urine. And number 3 for benzoic acid was gangrene. Third medicine on our list is Colophylum. Colophylum, please remember, it's a wonderful medicine for finger joint rheumatism. Wonderful medicine for finger joints rheumatism. That's number 1 for Colophylum, finger joint rheumatism. And number 2, most important for Colophylum, is finger joint rheumatism which migrates. The character of the pain is very important for Colophylum, migratory character of pains. Finger joint rheumatism with migratory character of pains. Associated with that, there is stiffness. Finger joint rheumatism, migratory character of pains. Associated with that, there is stiffness. In Colophylum, this shifting pains. It can be in the joints. Also in case of labor pains. How? Joint pains, I told, shifting character of the pains. In labor pains, there is, what happens then? If the pain is in the right direction, only labor can progress. In case of Colophylum, the pain is not progressing in the right direction. So there is shifting nature of the pains resulting in delayed labor for Colophylum. The shifting nature of the pains causes delay of the labor, and what Colophylum does, it helps in the progress of labor in the right direction. So shifting nature of pains manifested in osteoarthritis as well as manifested in case of labor pains, where Colophylum is a wonderful medicine for delayed labor, and this shifting character of the pain, Colophylum regularizes. So pains progress in the right direction, helping in the progressive. Next medicine we have is ginseng. We use ginseng very often. I'll say more than the medicines I mentioned earlier. Why? On two criteria for ginseng. Number one is stiffness and number two is contraction. You get these two features for ginseng. Lots of stiffness around the joints, in the joints, and associated with that there's a contracted feeling in the joints. That's a wonderful indication for ginseng. Stiffness in and around the joints associated with lots of contracted feeling around the joints. To get that, ginseng is a wonderful medicine. Stiffness,
Any of the
yeah, any of the joints. Stiffness associated with lots of contraction. You know, this type of contraction you also get in a polypress, like you can get in an ostium contraction. We have that in acne also, contraction. I like to mention one small medicine is ammon mu. We have lots of contraction in that medicine, ammon mu, ammonium muriaticum. And the appearance of ammon mu is like this. Huge body, like the upper part is just huge and it's supported on like two sticks. So body is large and fat and legs are very thin. So like a pumpkin is resting on two matchsticks. Ammonium looks like that. Just reverse of lycopodium. If you remember, lycopodium upper part is emaciated, lower part is more semi-dropsical. In ammonium the body is large and fat, whereas legs are very thin. It's mentioned in Allen's. And you can have a look at that. Body is large and fat, as legs are very thin for animal. Reverse of lycopodium. So stiffness and contraction for ginseng. Number 5 on our list is Kali iron. Kali iron is again a wonderful medicine. 3 aspects for Kali iron I'd like to highlight. Swelling plus mainly knee joints. Kali iron has lots of swelling mainly in the knee joints. And please remember, Kali iron is lots of sensitiveness. That knee joint is very sensitive to that. And associated with that, 2 very important modalities for Kali iron is aggravation night and aggravation damp. Aggravation night and aggravation damp. And in the center of the triangle you can put syphilitic events. Because syphilis miasm is preponderant, you will find this aggravation night is quite important for Kali iron. Associated with that, there is lots of sensitiveness and swelling. Mainly in the knee joints, you will find lots of swelling and effusion in the knee joints. So these 3 aspects for Kali iron are very important. And Kali iron is generally prescribed in higher potencies, 30C to 100C. Kali iron really works well. You will find lots of sensitiveness with swelling and night aggravation and damp weather aggravation. That's very important for Kali iron. This swelling in the knee joints, we also know that as housemaid's knee. It's also called housemaid's knee. Because generally the housemaids, if you see here, they walk on the ground and they are cleaning, so they are generally kneeling down on their knees, and it causes a friction and resulting in inflammation generally. So there's lots of swelling in the knee joints. It's also known as housemaid's knee for Kali iron. And 2 medicines I'd like to mention for housemaid's knee. Please remember, very small size medicine is slag, S-L-E-G, slag. Slag, S-L-A-G, slag, and sticta, S-T-I-C-T-A, sticta. Yeah, sticta. Slag and sticta. So in Kali iron, lots of swelling, sensitiveness with night aggravation and damp weather aggravation is very important for Kali iron. Please remember 30C to 100C works best for Kali iron. Other medicines much smaller, lower potencies. Another thing I'd like to mention, this type of swelling, if you get, well selected medicine is not working. Please think of sulfur. Why sulfur? It's mentioned in Allen's, a wonderful line. If you have Allen's, you can look at it. that to facilitate the absorption of serous fluids. Sulfur facilitates the absorption of serous fluids. When Bryannia calimute or the best selected medicine fails. To facilitate the absorption of serous fluids when Bryannia calimute or the best selected medicine fails. If you look in Allen's, when Bryannia calimute or the best selected medicine fails. So about 4 or 5 lines above from the relationship. That is written in anywhere where there is fluid collection. Facilitate absorption of fluids in joints, in lungs. So if you have fluid effusion, or in the joints where there is large collection of fluid, your best selected medicine, Bryannia, your calimute, or Matilapka is not working. Please remember that it will help in the absorption of that collected fluid. Sulfur. Yeah, you can prescribe also just on these modalities in osteoarthritis. So, in sulfur, that helps in the absorption of the fluids when your best selected medicine fails. That's very important for sulfur. And also career, you have that kind of spelling in there. Last but not the least in this group is rhamnus. Rhamnus has all the characters you will find in an inflammation. All the characters you will find in an inflammation. Like the joint will be red, joint will be swollen, and it will be painful and tender to touch. Painful and tender to touch. All the characters of inflammation, you find that in rhamnus: swollen, red, and painful to touch. It's generally prescribed in tincture or 6C. Inflammatory rheumatism is one word you must remember for rhamnus. Inflammatory rheumatism. Out of this, all 6 medicines, rhamnus and ginseng are most used because on the basis of common symptoms, rhamnus has this character of inflammatory rheumatism, and ginseng, that stiffness, that contraction is very important for ginseng. If you remember when I discussed asthma, idiodiction, which has asthma better by expectorate. Although that is quite a common symptom in asthma, but we use that quite often based on the common symptoms of the disease. Here also in rhamnus, we are prescribing it on the basis of the common symptoms of the disease, where the joints are red, joints are swollen, and it is painful and tender to touch. It's very important for rhamnus. And if your rhamnus fails in inflammatory rheumatism, please remember another medicine is Malvaria. G-A-U-L-T-H-E-R-I-A. Malvaria. Malvaria also has this characters of inflammatory rheumatism. If your rhamnus fails in inflammatory rheumatism, you can think of Malvaria. Just like to do a recap. Actia spicata I mentioned, wrist joint rheumatism was from the slightest fatigue or slightest motion, number 1. Number 2 I mentioned is benzoic acid, the cracking of the joints which is aggravated by the least motion. There is offensive urine in the background. Associated with that, we have high uric acid, and ganglion is important for benzoic acid. Number 3 on our list was polyphylum, where I mentioned the shifting character of the pains are very important for polyphylum, and special action of polyphylum is on the finger joints. 3 medicines for finger joint rheumatism, you can take it down. Number 1 is obviously polyphylum, finger joint rheumatism. Number 1 is Colophylum. Number 2 is viola. V-I-O-L-A. Viola odorata. Viola odorata. V-I-O-L-A. Viola odorata. That's generally right-sided finger joints are involved. Right-sided. And when you well-selected medicine, both of them fails, you can think of ulmus. U-L-M-U-S. Ulmus. So in colophylum, you have the shifting character of the veins associated with lots of stiffness. Number 2 I mentioned, viola, where right-sided is generally affected, and if a well-selected medicine fails, you can think of ulmus. Any questions on this? I mentioned about actia spicata. Another actia is very important is actia racemosa. A person working long hours on the computer, working for 6, 8 hours, 12 hours on the computer, or working actia racemosa. Working 6, 8 hours or 12 hours on the computer or writing for that aspect. Please, if you could look here. Pain in the neck and back. Pain in the neck region and this region. This is a special area for actia racemosa. Neck region and back region. So, working long hours, using his hands for long hours. Where is it manifesting? It is manifesting in the neck and back. So, you are prescribing here on the basis of etiology and the location where it is affected. Overexertion. Working so for such a long time, overexertion, manifesting where? In the neck and back, lots of soreness. Neck and back having lots of sore feeling in the neck and back. So person working for 12, 14 hours on the computer or writing for such a long hours, overexertion, and where is it manifesting? In the neck and back, associated with lots and lots of soreness.
Would it be in mother tincture as well?
No, that's important. But you see 200. It can be in the bellies of the muscles, it can be like that. It's more this. So we consider overexertion here. Overexertion manifesting soreness. You can think of actia racemosa. Also arnica is obviously there. Lots of overexertion. Person playing after 10, 12 years, he didn't play. Suddenly started playing and was playing in the afternoon and in the evening he came down with lots of soreness in the body. Arnica. And for actia racemosa, overexerting himself, like it's mentioned in Allen's typewriter, or using the computer, resulting in soreness mainly in the neck and back. So overexertion manifesting soreness, two medicines are actia racemosa and arnica. Whereas overexertion manifesting in burning, lots of burning in the muscles. Overexertion resulting in burning in the muscles. Please remember Helonius. Helonias. Helonius. If you look in your body case for Helonius, if you open your body case for Helonius, find in the introduction, it's mentioned about second and third last line in introduction. Strained and tired muscles burn and heat. Strained and tired muscles burn and heat. Have you found that? In Helonius, in the introduction, about second and third last line in the introduction. Strained and tired muscles. For those worn out with hard work, tired, strained muscles burn and heat. But burning for Helonius is quite important. Helonius is also a wonderful medicine. Please remember, for never been well since miscarriage. Never been well since miscarriage. Patient had a history of miscarriage or recurrent miscarriages, and patient has never been well since that miscarriage. Never been well since that miscarriage. How is it manifested generally? Backache after miscarriage is important for Helonius. Backache after miscarriage. Two aspects of Helonius I mentioned. Number one is overexertion, shopping for 8 hours, 10 hours. Lots of overexertion, manifesting in burning in the muscles. So overtired muscles, burning, that's Helonius. Number one. Overtired muscles, there is burning. That's Helonius. And number two is patient had a history of repeated miscarriages. History of repeated miscarriages, resulting mainly in backache. And one interesting thing about Helonius is patient is always happy when he is kept busy. Whenever he is not busy, you'll find that in Bodhika's mention. Whenever patient is kept busy, he is happy. And whenever he or she is not busy, he starts thinking about his problems. So kept happy when he is kept busy. Three things for Helonius. Number one, overtired muscles, burn after lots of exertion. Number two is patient has never been well since miscarriage. How is it manifested? Generally it is manifested as backache. And number three is patient is generally happy when he is kept busy. These three important aspects for Helonius. Associated with that, you have lots of weakness and prostration in Helonius. Lots of weakness and prostration. It's also mentioned in body, tired back achy females. Tired back achy females. So tired females, lots of backache. Whenever they are going on a shopping, they are having those burning in the muscles, burning in different parts of the body. That's Helonius. So I mentioned overexertion, manifesting soreness is arnica, actia racemosa. Overexertion manifesting in burning, that's your Helonius. And overexertion manifesting in stiffness, rigidity, that's obviously rustlers. Overexertion manifesting in lots of stiffness in the muscles, rigidity in the muscles, that's rustlers. Now go on to the chronic medicines. If you look, it's in your page 25. The 6 medicines are mentioned: Rhinia, Posticum, Gallica, Medorinum, Phytolacca, and Rosicus. All of these, if we see, that all of these have very specific modalities on the basis of which we can prescribe these medicines. All of these are very specific modalities. Consider Rhinia, Rosicus, Posticum, Phytolacca. Very specific modalities which differentiates each from the other. In Rhinia, we know obviously patient is aggravated when he moves at all. Soon as he starts moving, there is lots of aggravation. Aggravation motion, better rest, and all joint pains for Rhinia are relieved by pressure. Aggravation motion, better rest, better by pressure. I'm just concentrating on the modalities. Aggravation motion, better by rest, better by pressure. As you consider Rustox. You know, in Rustox we have aggravation first motion and better by continued motion. Aggravation first motion and relief by continued motion. We have aggravation rest in Rustox. We have rain aggravation, rain and damp aggravation in Rustox. Evening and night. And better by dawn. So in Rustox, aggravation first motion, better continued motion. Aggravation rest, aggravation rain and damp, aggravation evening, and better by dawn. I remember Rustox R, 2R are very important aggravation for Rustox. R1 is rest and R2 is rain. If you remember these two aggravations for Rustox, R1 is rest and R2 is rain. R for Rustox and 2 R's give him very aggravation. Rest and rain. Rain and damp, rainy weather, damp weather, and rest aggravation. Third medicine we have is Phytolacca. In Phytolacca, we have some symptoms of rhinia, we have some symptoms of Rustox. There's a wonderful line in Allen's for Phytolacca that it occupies some symptoms of rhinia and some of Rustox, cures when these two fail. Covers some symptoms of rhinia, some symptoms of Rustox, and it cures when these two fail. So when you have some mixed modalities, some covering rhinia, some covering Rustox, you can think of Phytolacca. Most important in Phytolacca, rain and night. You know, in rhinia we have aggravation motion. In Rustox we have aggravation first motion, better by continued motion. So in Phytolacca you can have either of these. You can have rhinia symptoms, you can have Rustox symptoms. Your Phytolacca patient may say that whenever I start moving, I have an aggravation. But by continuing moving, I also have an aggravation. So you just can't get symptoms of rhinia, you're not getting also symptoms of Rustox. Am I clear?
Yes.
So you're not getting some symptoms of rhinia, not getting some symptoms of Rustox. In rhinia, we have better by rest, you have aggravation by rest in Rustox. In Phytolacca, you can have either of these. You can have the better by rest of rhinia, or you can have the aggravation by rest of Rustox. So, also in this factor, it can be rhinia, it can be Rustox. Most important for Phytolacca is this rainy weather aggravation, this damp weather aggravation is very important, and you will definitely find this in Phytolacca. This rainy weather aggravation, this damp weather aggravation, you definitely find that in Phytolacca. And also night aggravation. In Rustox, it's more evening tending towards midnight, whereas in Phytolacca, it's more towards the later part of the night. In Rustox, it's very finer differentiation. That in Rustox, it's more to evening tending towards the first half of the night, whereas in Phytolacca, it's more towards the later part of the night. And in Phytolacca also, please remember that it's one of the leading medicine for syphilitic osteoarthritis. I mentioned Kelly iod earlier, that it's a medicine for syphilitic osteoarthritis. So in syphilitic myasm preponderant in osteoarthritis, we have Kelly iod, we have Phytolacca, and we have Calcarea food. Kelly iod, Phytolacca, and Calcarea food. Syphilitic myasm preponderant in osteoarthritis, Kelly iod, Phytolacca, and Calcarea. How will the syphilitic be manifested? Syphilitic myasm, how will it manifest in osteoarthritis? Rain at night, yeah. Night aggravation is important, number one. Night aggravation. And number two is degenerative osteoarthritis, where you find there is degenerative changes in the bones, there is erosion in the bones. So degenerative changes, if you have associated with that night aggravation, please understand that it's a syphilitic myasm is preponderant in the background. Degenerative changes where erosion is prominent in the joint spaces, or where you have night aggravation, the syphilitic myasm is preponderant in the background. So three medicines for syphilitic osteoarthritis: Calcarea flu, Phytolacca, and Kelly iod. If you look in Kelly iod, if you just go back to Kelly iod, you'll see that I mentioned in Kelly iod there is sensitiveness, there is swelling. In Kelly iod, if you look, there is sensitiveness, there is swelling, and I mentioned night aggravation and damp aggravation. If you compare Kali iron and Phytolacca, you see I mentioned night aggravation is also present in Phytolacca. This rain and damp is also present in Phytolacca. This night and damp is also present in Phytolacca, also present in Kali iron. So how do you differentiate Phytolacca and Kali iron? Please remember, for Phytolacca, migratory character of pains is very important. Shifting type of pains, migratory type of pains are very important for Phytolacca, which you will not find in Kali iron. Shifting or migratory type of pains. That's a very important aspect for Phytolacca, which is not present in Kali iron. And if you look, I mentioned sensitiveness for Kali iron. Whereas in Phytolacca, because it is a mixture of rust ox, it's a mixture of Rhynia, you can have better by pressure of Rhynia. Whereas in rust ox, that sensitiveness is not so much important. Because Phytolacca is a mixture of Rhynia, mixture of rust ox, you may have better by pressure. Whereas in Kali iron, if you touch the joint, it's happening. So sensitive to touch in Kali iron. Whereas in Phytolacca, the sensitive aspects is not important at all. Whereas on the other hand, in Phytolacca, you can have better by pressure. I'll just repeat again, in Phytolacca and Kali iron, Phytolacca has damp aggravation, Phytolacca has night aggravation. Also Kali iron has damp aggravation and night aggravation. But the differentiating point between Kali iron and Phytolacca is, Phytolacca has that shifting character of the pains, migratory character of pains. Pain is sometimes here, sometimes goes to the ankle, sometimes comes to the hip joint. So always migrating from one joint to another in Phytolacca. In Kali iron, there is lots of sensitiveness which you will not find in Phytolacca. In Kali iron, there is lots of sensitiveness which you will not find in Phytolacca. As in Phytolacca, because it is a mixture of Rhynia, mixture of rust ox, and you know in Rhynia we have the pains which are better by pressure, better by lying on the painful side. So in Phytolacca you can have better by pressure. The sensitiveness will not be there at all in Phytolacca. Any questions on this? So, in Phytolacca, you can have all these modalities and just you can add here migratory pains. At the start of our discussion, I mentioned that give importance to the modalities, followed by location, followed by character. Location, if you consider all three are right-sided medicines. Rhynia is right-sided, mostly right-sided, rust ox is mostly right-sided, Phytolacca is also mostly right-sided. So you cannot differentiate these medicines on the basis of location. So modalities I mentioned and the character of the pains you can differentiate on the basis of that. How? Phytolacca will have that migratory character of the pains. Your rust ox will have lots of stiffness and rigidity, which I mentioned in ginseng, if you remember, that there is lots of stiffness and contraction. Your rust ox will have lots of stiffness and rigidity in rust ox, and in Rhynia we have the characteristic stitching type of pains. All these modalities, we first generally ask about the modalities. Start with the modalities when we get a case of osteoarthritis. Is it aggravated by first motion? Is it better by continuing motion? You're not getting that. Is it aggravated when you move as a whole? Then think of Rhynia. Or you're getting, I'm aggravated by first motion, but continuing motion doesn't relieve my trouble. It's also aggravated by continuing motion. And if you get with that, it's damp aggravation, it's night aggravation, migratory character of pains, it's definitely Phytolacca. So, some symptoms of Rhynia, some symptoms of rust ox with migratory character of pains, please remember Phytolacca. And very final differentiation I mentioned, Phytolacca and Kali iron, that sensitiveness will never be present in Phytolacca, and the migratory character of pains will never be present in Kali iron. Another medicine I'd like to mention in relation to Rhynia, look in your body for Gettysburg water, G-E-T-T-Y, Gettysburg, G-E-T-T-Y, water. if you look that, it's mentioned that there is rigidity which is aggravated from least motion. Rigidity aggravated by least motion. And another line mentioning italics is not perceived when point. Rigidity aggravated by least motion and it is not perceived when point. So you have the modality of bryonia and the character of pain of Rostok's. You have the modality of bryonia and the character of pain of Rostok's. Rigidity is present in Rostok's, but the modality, that is aggravation motion, better rest, is of bryonia. If you have this type of symptoms, you can definitely think of this medicine. 30C is very good. There is rigidity of Rostok's and the modality, which is aggravation motion and better rest of bryonia. Small size, very specific action is Gettysburg. In 30C it works really well. Symptoms of bryonia with the character of pain of Rostok's. Now talking about Rostok's, I'd like to drop this. is generally followed by calcium very well. Rostok's followed by calcium. If you remember this chain of medicine, it works really well. Rostok's, you start the case with Rostok's, then you can go to calcareous fluid, and then three medicines come up. Radium, Puja, and Medullization. You started the case with Rostok's, then you went to calcareous fluid, and last but not the least, an antipsychotic medicine, which can be radium, Puja, or Medullization. This chain of medicine is very important whenever you can start the case with Rostok's. Calcareous fluid is not mentioned in this list. I'd just like to mention three important things for calcareous fluid. Number one for calcareous fluid is aggravation first motion, better continued motion. Aggravation first motion, better continued motion. With aggravation new moon fluid. This is very important for calcareous fluid. Aggravation first motion, better continued motion with new moon and full moon aggravation is very important for calcareous fluid. Number one. Number two is, I mentioned earlier, it's a medicine for syphilitic osteoarthritis. Calcareous fluid. Syphilitic osteoarthritis. Number three is calcareous fluid is a good medicine for calcaneal spar. Calcaneal spar. What happens in calcaneal spar? In our heel bone, there is an excess growth. In the calcaneum bone, there is an excess growth. And calcareous fluid generally covers this type of symptoms very well. Where in the heel bone, you will find like an excess bony growth from here. It's called exostosis. Excess bony growth in the calcaneal bone. And this type of excess growth with aggravation first motion, better continued motion. Please remember, calcareous fluid is a wonderful medicine. Heel pain where there is excess growth or exostosis, which is aggravated by first motion, which is relieved by continued motion, with new moon, full moon aggravation, and some symptoms of calcaria in general. You can think of calcaria fluid works really, really well.
Which publicity do you use salt or do you use
If there is an aggravation, you can come down to 12C. You can start with 30-200. If there is an aggravation, you can come down to 12C. So number one is aggravation first motion, better continued motion with new moon, full moon aggravation. Number two is syphilitic osteoarthritis, I mentioned, KDI or Phytolacta and calcareous fluid. And third in the list is calcaneal spar, which is also aggravated by first motion and relieved by continued motion. It's an important aspect for calcareous. medicine on our list is keli carb. If you look, I mentioned in Bryannia, aggravation motion, better rest, better by pressure. Just reverse these modalities and you get keli carb. Just if you reverse these modalities, what? So patient is relieved by continued movement, better by motion, aggravated by rest, and aggravated by touch. I mentioned in Kelly iron that there is lots of sensitiveness. The sensitiveness is a common character of the Kellyans. Sensitiveness is a common character of the Kellyans which you find in Kelly carb, you find in Kelly iron. Sensitiveness runs all through the family for Kellys. And this type of modalities, aggravation rest, better by motion and aggravated by pressure, with sweat, backache, and lots of weakness, you will have Kelly carb. Sweat, backache, lots of weakness, that's the triangle for Kelly carb. You will have that. So aggravation by motion, aggravation by rest, better by motion, aggravation by pressure, with this triangle, lots of sweating, backache, and weakness is preponderant for Kelly carb. Most often Kelly carb is generally prescribed for lumbago or back pain. It's a very wonderful medicine for back pain which is relieved by motion. You will not find aggravation fast motion like you found in Rastos calcarea flow, but as a whole, patient in general is relieved by continued movement. Special affinity for Kelly carb is the back. A wonderful medicine I'd like to mention for backache is cobaltum. Cobaltum. It's a metal cobaltum. If you look in your body pain for cobaltum, look in your body pain for cobaltum. Cobaltum. You find that backache is aggravation sitting, better by moving about. Backache, aggravation sitting, better by moving about. It's mentioned in the back. Pain in the back and sacrum, worse while sitting, better walking. So where is it prescribed? Someone driving for long hours. Driving for 6 hours, 7 hours on a stretch, not getting any break, resulting in severe backache. Obviously worse while sitting and better by moving about. And if that persists for a long time, please take up cobaltum. Especially in drivers, especially in persons who are driving for a long time, with a long stretch without any break. Backache which is worse while sitting and relieved by moving about. And generally 200, 1M potency works really well for cobaltum. Because it's a metal, high potency is generally well for cobaltum. Backache worse while sitting, better by moving. Yes, the specific position is for long hours of Kelly carb is better by warm application. Kelly carb is generally chilly, so better by warm applications. Kelly carb is generally better by warm applications. So again, see, Kelly carb also has that backache. Cobaltum also has that. In Kelly carb, it is relieved by motion. Also in cobaltum, it is better by the warm. But how differentiate between Kelly carb and cobaltum? Cobaltum has a specific position that long hours of driving, long hours sitting for a long time, resulting in that backache, which is better by. That's how you differentiate between Kelly carb and cobaltum.